Hi everyone, it's me, Krylios, Team Rayceen Productions co-host and moderator.
And I'm Erin Palmer, Team Rayceen Productions co-host and moderator.
Joining us is Joanne. Welcome.
Hey, thank you. It's great to be here.
Pleasure
Thanks,
to have
Joanne.
you here.
Before we get started talking about your book, please tell our viewers a little bit about who you are.
Okay, I'm a former journalist. I used to be an editor for a couple of newspapers, the Boston Globe, Chicago Tribune. So that's my background. That started off my writing slash editing career. Published a few novels back in the early 2000s, and then took a long break. Island Man is me kind of like getting my feet back into the literary world. On the personal side, I was born in Dominica, came to the US, to Boston as a teenager, but I've lived all over the US since college. So yeah, kind of a varied background, but that's a little about me.
Awesome. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Well, let us get into this book a little bit. Okay. So I know as a writer myself that when it comes to the inspiration for one's book, that can come from so many different things, your own life, the lives of people around you, experiences you've had, experiences by friends. Tell us about Island Man and the inspirations that, really propelled you to write it.
Yeah, so these are stories, a bunch of stories actually that came from my family. I would say mostly my uncle, who passed away in the spring of 2020, right around when COVID started. This was just a guy that I was very close to. He passed away at age 59. And so a lot of the inspiration, I think, especially for the parts during the second half, where you go back in time to Dominica in the 1960s and 70s and early 80s. That's a lot of that was informed by him and some of his experiences growing up there. I mean, I grew up there too, but I was pretty young. So a lot of the things that were going on, they didn't have a lot of context for me. So short answer to that, it's a lot of family stories, stories of people that I know in my community, all kind of meshed together. But the main inspiration, I would say, would be my uncle.
Interesting. Joanne, was it challenging to write from the perspective of a male protagonist?
Absolutely. My previous novels, they were all sort of, well, except for one that was based on two preteen kids, but they were all very female based. They were back in the early 2000s in the era of what you would call chick lit. So I was always writing young women, kind of obsessed with dating and whatever and that sort of thing. Writing a near middle-aged man, that was definitely a challenge, and I definitely had to slow down a lot and think and talk. And I have brothers. I was close to my uncle. I'm pretty close to my dad. So I always was just trying to think of the way that they spoke and the way they approached, various issues in their lives, and the way I was writing Hector, and thinking, he would never say that, or he would never obsess over that little thing like I would, or my sisters would, being stereotypical here. But yeah, it was definitely challenging, but it was something I wanted to push myself to do. I mean, I had just, was coming down at the end of a writing program at Hopkins, and, I was just like, okay, I'm going to take on a challenge. I didn't expect it to work, but I think it did. So.
Awesome, wonderful. It's always great when writing to be able, as the writer, to put yourself in that different perspective and be able to understand the character through that and put it on the page and look over it and be like, is this, natural to the character? Is that what it is? So tell us about your choices for Hector and why you chose to depict him in the way that you did.
Yeah, so Hector is not the person that you start reading about, and maybe when, in the parts about his childhood, that I think from the feedback I've been getting so far, and he's not the kind of person that when the more you learn about him, you just love him, and you're just rooting for him all the way. He makes some bad choices in his life. And I wanted to come at this. I've always wanted to just write about regular people, and not necessarily quote unquote characters. And I think Hector is a real person who had a very real life. I mean, as real as you can get in a fictional account. But he had an imperfect life. He grew up longing for a dad, or whether unconsciously or so. He had some models, maybe, but still always having that lack in his life. And it wasn't to make an excuse for him and the things that he did, especially the way he mistreated his wife. But I think it's something that a lot of people deal with, men and women, wanting to do the right thing, but finding themselves doing the wrong thing anyway. So I wanted to make him as real as possible. And it was kind of a risk. I have gotten feedback like I couldn't stand him. It's like, it must be nice to be perfect. But
I see him as a flawed character, but those are always my favorites. So
yeah.
My own book has some very unreliable narrators and people who by the end you're like, oh girl, why is she the lead of the story? So I get it.
Yeah. So not everybody is great. Yeah.
Imperfect or flawed, do you consider any of the characters heroes in your book?
I would say no. I mean, I think there's a character that it's Zoom, and it's one of Winston's sisters, and she's kind of buried deep in the book. And so she's not a main character, but I think she's the one that, with all the family trauma and all the losses that they had to endure, she's the one that I think that kind of rises above it. I also like because she's able to say that, listen, I've put all these things in the past. I've forgiven my mother, and I'm just going to move ahead with my life. I'm going to be grateful that I have a family now. I'm now living in the United States, and I'm not going to dwell on the past. And so I think in some ways that's healthy. So that makes her a hero because she's able to not continue living in the past. And Winston to a certain extent, although I think he was just so hurt from since he was a little boy, that it's almost like become part of his DNA, his trauma. But I still think he does well for himself, but obviously it continues to follow him. So I would say, yeah, in terms of a hero, it would be the character Zoom, but she's not a main character.
Well, Joanne, what do you hope resonates with the readers of Island Man?
Yeah, I want people to see themselves and their families in this book, because I think no matter what your background is, or where you're from, we all come from a family, whether it's adopted or whatever, and there are all people in our family who aggravate us, who betray us, who we love and who we struggle to love. And I want readers to read this book and think, this was triggering for me, or I really didn't like this person, but I want to think about how I can love this very difficult person in my family, even if at a distance. But yeah, I think I want the message to be reconciliation and forgiveness. If people ever read this book and want to get something from it, yeah, reconcile, forgive.
Those are beautiful themes, and I can't wait to check out your book. Can you tell our viewers how they can learn more about you, what's upcoming, and get a hold of your book?
Yeah, so you can find the book on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, some independent bookstores, and I'm on Instagram, as you'll see from the flyer there. I'm doing some events in the Boston area. I'll be in Orlando, October 22, Philadelphia, November 12th, with the spectacular Black Girl Art Show, which is really, really fun event that I highly recommend that people go to. Lots of Black artists doing really fun and interesting things. So, but there'll be more events as the months go along. So, but definitely, follow on Instagram and buy the book, read it, listen to it on audio.
Certainly. Thank you so much, Joanne. I've got to remind our viewers that the links are in the description. So look in the description for links and you'll be able to buy the book, check out dates to see Joanne in person. And will you be doing any book signings at any of these upcoming events, Joanne?
Absolutely, yes. Next one is September 30th at Barnes & Noble in Dedham, Massachusetts. So I'll be signing there.
Awesome. To our viewers, keep those dates in mind. Joanne, thank you so much for joining us. It's been such a pleasure getting to chat with you, and we wish you much success with Islandsman. Thank you.
Thank you so much. This has been fun.
To those watching, please follow Team Rayceen on social media.
And click around our YouTube channel and check out our other interviews, forums, vlogs, and more. And while you're there, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. But most of all, thank you for watching.